Hello, everybody, and welcome to the very first episode 2 of Blood Monsters and Fears, hosted by me, Craig Brosnan.
And me, Anastasia Castleberry.
We just finished having a nice dinner of assorted sorts. One of us had Panera and one of us had McDonald's. If you know both of us well, you could probably figure out who had McDonald's and who had Panera. When we watched that, or we didn't watch that, we ate that while we watched Harley Quinn, a great show not related to anything we're talking about today.
No, but it's great.
Yes, it is fantastic. Everybody go watch Harley Quinn, Batman fan or not. It's actually super funny. But what we're talking about today is motherfucking Hellraiser from 1987.
Wow. Wow.
Just wow.
Just wow. 33 years and, wow.
You know what? Fucking love this movie. It is so goddamn good. This is everything I love in film. It's super cheesy. Most of it doesn't make sense. A lot of it's stupid. It has a lot of things that shouldn't be there. It's overly violent. It's overly sexual. The music is banging. The designs of the characters are so cool. Everything looks hellish, and it holds up super well, and I love this movie.
I don't want to say that I'm surprised that you like it. I think what surprises me is how much you like it.
Really?
This is one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. I remember seeing it for the first time when I was like 12. And I very secretly checked it out at the library because I didn't want my mom to know that I was trying to watch Hellraiser. Because she wasn't okay with like the gore and like the sex. So I tried to like hide it so I could watch it on my home computer. And I did, and I just remember thinking like, what the fuck is this? And even now, all this time later, like it's been 12 years, I'm a fully grown woman, and I'm sitting here watching this with you, and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
And I'm just like, yes, this is awesome. I don't know.
It's strange.
I really think the main thing for me is I love really good practical effects. Like, I don't know if or when we're going to talk about it on this podcast. One of the few horror movies I have seen is John Carpenter's The Thing. And that has probably the best, like, practical effects in...
anything.
Yeah, probably. And this movie, the way a lot of it was done, especially, like, the weird, like, humanoid gross scorpion thing reminded me a lot of that. So, I really enjoyed it. And I would suggest this for anybody that likes either practical effects or even just likes horror films, because it's a very different experience, and it's not like anything else I've ever watched.
You have to like gore, you have to like cheesy gore, you have to like things that really just they don't make sense to a rational mind, but they work well for this weird little movie.
Mm-hmm. There is a lot of weird things, like people getting their faces half clawed off, and then no blood. It just, like, the blood stays on them, and then their skin's just hanging off their face for the rest of the movie.
That was the highlight of the film.
That's actually the only thing that made me uncomfortable. I don't know why. But, like, the dark red marks from, like, it's like where it should have been bloody, and it was just, like, skin dangling from his cheek. I was like, ugh.
But I mean, kind of wouldn't that happen? I don't know. I feel like that's what it would look like for sure if part of your face was hanging off.
True, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, is that what it would really look like if a man exploded, too? When that happens in this movie?
I don't want to know. I don't want an answer.
Alrighty. Well, why don't you go ahead and give us a bit of a rundown here?
Okay, so this movie is written and directed by everyone's favorite weirdo, Clive Barker. This is based off of a book, and really a series of books that he wrote. That's why there are, in fact, 10 Hellraiser films.
Jesus.
I know.
Let's just do a marathon. We're gonna
Oh,
next
God.
week's episode, Hellraiser 2.
Absolutely not. This is well known as a cult classic with amazing practical special effects, like Craig was gushing over. In the final cut of this movie, the average person sees is pretty heavily censored because the original was too gory and violent and way too sexual. That, like, at one point before the final cut got made, it was banned in Canada.
It's awesome.
Because they were like, nah, that's too much.
Yeah, because you said that at first it got an X rating, right, before they did a lot of the edits.
There was so much so much. Sex. I don't know. And just way more gore. Like, there were scenes that got cut out where Kirsty has her hand in the guy's stomach and is like moving his guts around. And there's a scene where somebody dies and they're supposed to be fully naked. So it's way more violent. And so you can kind of see certain cuts in the movie where they had to take things out because it just the death scene looks way more gory than what you see happen. And I was like, amazing.
Yeah, there's a few. The two that stuck out to me where I was like, I could tell that they cut it short was both times they showed Frank explode.
Yeah.
You can tell that they cut it because it's like it just starts to happen and then it cuts away to like you seeing the parts flying opposed to his whole body actually blowing up. And I feel like it sounds wrong for me to say I wish I could have saw it, but I'm really curious about how it would have looked and how it would have been done because the way everything else is done in this movie, it probably would have looked like obviously it would have looked disgusting and awful, but it would have looked awesome at the same time.
Yeah, like really
you know
well
what I mean? Exactly. Yeah. Like I think that is something that would be hard to pull off, but I feel like they would have been able to with the way that they were doing everything else. That, and then the other thing that you could tell was cut was when they, when Julia smashes the dude the first time with the hammer, because it kind of cuts away, and then you see like his whole chin is like missing. Like you can tell that like it's at some point you saw something fall off or something, because it was like way too quick of a cut. But God, it was so good. I really enjoyed this movie. And you know a decent amount about Clive Barker, right? Like, you've read some of his actual stuff?
I've read his short stories. I've read about half a book. I've seen some other things that he's made. He is a very weird person. He is a very overtly sexual person. And it's always like sex and violence together, like sex and blood. And I'm like, Clive, what do you do in your spare time? Like,
we don't kink shame on this on this podcast.
I didn't say I'm kink shaming him. I'm saying that I want to know what goes on behind closed doors, Clive. If you hear this,
gotta know the Barker tea.
So interested. I want that Barker tea. He is just a weird guy.
Yeah, did you actually read his the Hellbound Heart or no? The book that this is based off of?
I didn't.
I'm almost curious. I know I almost want to. I'm not much of a reader, but I'd be curious, especially since I've never read a horror book that's not Goosebumps, and I feel like that doesn't really count because those are like technically for children, even if they're still kind of good reads when you're older. Because I went back and I've read some of as an adult, and they're still fun for what they are.
And that's all that matters.
Exactly, but yeah. So Clive Barker is a horny man.
Very horny.
So we know that. And you definitely see that in this movie, too. So we'll be talking some unnecessary sexual things as we go through the plot summary.
It's my favorite thing to talk about.
Is it?
God, no.
Yeah. I've never seen a sex scene in a movie or a TV show where it felt relevant.
No.
So,
I feel like
and
it's
that,
never
of course,
relevant. It never feels right.
No, and even in this, it's like, I don't know. I think the absurdity of the movie just made it funny to me. So, because everything in this movie is so over the top, but that's what I like. My favorite genre of movie is Godzilla. So, I like my wacky shit, and this movie was wacky, and it's a good time. I definitely think it's a must see for everybody.
Yeah,
if you just like horror or you just like film, there's nothing else like it. And just for that, it's like even if you think it's bad, you're still not going to watch anything else that's remotely like this movie.
No. And I mean, this is also Clive Barker's first movie that he ever directed. And for him to honestly come out so strong with a story and people that brought the story to life so with just strength that it, even though it's ridiculous in every way, I feel like it's still very believable. It especially in its own little world, like, I believe it. Like, there's no way you could convince me that this, in some corner of some reality, didn't happen.
I know. I'm convinced, too. I mean, you've seen other Hellraiser movies, of course. I haven't. Absolutely. But this movie leaves a lot of questions open, too, and it makes me curious, because it's like, you could tell that he has this whole world built around all of these demonic creatures, and I'm very curious about if they go into the history or more personalities of some of this stuff eventually. And it makes me, like, obviously we can't do all these movies in a row as much as I would love to. I'm sure people wouldn't want to listen to that. But in my own time, I'm probably going to eventually end up watching some of them now because I'm just super curious about the world of Well, is it called like the Hellbound Heart series or the Hellraiser series?
I don't really know because I know there are multiple books and the movies are called the Hellraiser series.
Mm-hmm.
And I do know that, if I'm not mistaken, and anyone can comment, send us a message, whatever, let me know if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure though that he only made the first two.
Oh,
And
okay.
so from there on, he was not involved with the other
Mm.
movies. But the second one does definitely give you more to the mythos of this weird little world.
It's cool though too because I feel like we would have a completely different movie if the person who didn't write the original story didn't also make the movie.
I wholeheartedly
Like,
agree.
it's cool because I feel like that almost never happens. One of the only people I could think of, and it's not horror at all, is Miyazaki in his films.
That's fair.
Like how was it Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind? He
Yeah.
wrote that manga and then he made the movie himself to like fund Studio Ghibli, which is awesome. But that doesn't happen often, so
No.
it's really interesting for that to be the case here.
Yeah,
And-
the only other person I can think of would be Stephen King.
Oh yeah, true, because he has made his own stuff too,
Several
right?
things that he's made.
True. I know we'll have to do some of his stuff eventually too.
Everything he's ever made.
I know. Inevitably, when we do stuff that's like a book or a game or something in terms of horror too, we'll have to do like a book review for something Stephen King like.
And I mean,
He's the king of it,
things-
so.
It's true. Two things for anyone that knows me. One, love Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
That's my man's. Two, it would kind of be hard, I think, for anyone that really knows me well to picture me watching this movie because it is so gory and I hate gore. As a big horror
True.
person as I am squeamish with fake blood in special effects.
all
It
things.
freak me out. It makes me want to throw up.
And I'm just like neat,
Yep.
tasty ketchup juice. Even though I hate ketchup.
It's so gross.
I'm a mayonnaise stand through and through. You can all judge me, but I will die before I eat ketchup. At least on purpose. If I accidentally eat it, I'll be like, bleh. I'll throw up a little bit.
You'll be like, what?
Yes, it'll be like bleh. Okay. Well, we've kind of bullshitted around for a little bit longer than expected, but why don't we go ahead and get to the plot of Hellraiser?
Okay, so this movie opens with a man who we find out not that long after is Frank Cotton, buying a puzzle box from a man at a bazaar in a foreign country that kind of looks like somewhere in the Middle East, whatever. It kind of cuts pretty quickly to him in a dark room surrounded by candles in an old house, and he's messing with the puzzle box. He's really like sweaty, kind of oiled up. It's a very weird scene.
Oh yeah.
And he's messing with this box, and the box opens and it brings through this weird world of what they're called the Cenobites. I don't know how you would say it.
I think it's Cenobites.
Yeah,
I think is what
Cenobites.
they call it. Because I think Frank says it at some point in the movie too.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they call themselves. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't paying enough attention to that.
Fair.
I'm afraid of needles anywhere near my face, so anytime I see Pinhead, I get really
You're
freaked
just like,
out.
wow, he's living my worst fear.
Every fear I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And it opens this world of the Cenobites. And on our little prompt thing that I have, I've put sadists down to describe them. But I feel like it's way worse than that.
Oh yeah.
It's definitely very hardcore sadomasochism. Like, sorry, American Horror Story Season 1, you couldn't even touch what this is.
I chuckle like I know what you're talking about.
One day you will.
Yeah.
One day.
I'll have to watch it.
But I guess they're just... I don't even know how to describe them. They're just these otherworldly beings. They're horrifying to look at. And they go to the extremes from hell or whatever the dimension they're from to kind of blur the lines between pleasure and pain in the carnal desires that humans have. And Frank is so down. He wants this box so bad. He's like, there's nothing else as a human that I can feel without this. This is the only other thing that I'm interested in. I don't care how bad it hurts or what else happens. I need to feel something. And he feels some things that are not PG-13.
Yes.
That are not safe for work in SFW.
Yes.
And next thing you know, he blows up. And it was
Yeah,
a lot of carnage.
a bunch of hooks come in through all of his skin and all different sides and tear him to pieces, and then cuts away right before he explodes, and is cringing as I say
it's
that.
so just
She's
hooks in the I can't.
And then we get introduced to our boy.
Pinhead. Again, he who lives out my worst fears. He scares me. I don't know, I feel like he just embodies so many things that freak me out. So he just shows up, and it's been him in the other Cenobites, but he's the one you really see. He grabs his box, and he's like, oh, humans, mere mortals. And he kind of fixes it, puts it back in its own, its original arrangement, and then as he's doing this, all the carnage, all the hooks, the weird candles, all the grossness that happened in this room just reverts, and it's like it never happened.
Super weird.
And it was an interesting, I thought it was really cool to see how they cut it, because Craig didn't catch it. He didn't notice that it happened. And he was like, where did all that stuff go? And I'm like, well, Pinhead messed with his funny box. And things happen.
But one thing you forgot to mention that I love in that scene too is before he picks up the box, he goes and he like squishes Frank's face back together.
Ooh,
even
you're
though
right,
it's just
he
in
pieces back together. Ew.
And it looks, oh my god, it looks so realistic.
It's so gross.
Like it literally looks like if you took like a puzzle piece of somebody's face and put it on the floor.
Like cut off just the first layer of your skin. It was so gross.
It was something.
0 out of 10. I would not want to be Frank. We then, pretty quickly after that, we find out that the place that he did this in is the house that he grew up in. We find out because his brother Larry and his wife Julia start moving into the house, and they go upstairs, and they're like, well, she's asking him, like, where's your brother? That he's going to come and get some of your parents' old stuff. And he's like, he's probably in jail, whatever. And then they go up into the attic where all that horrible, scary shit happened, and it's like it never happened. And she starts fawning over an old photo of Frank, and then she has these really whoa.
Like softcore porn.
That was not soft. That was hardcore. He brings out a knife. He cuts off her chemise. There's 2 thrusts with his booty in the shot. That there was originally apparently 3 in the original cut of this movie, but the official rating system in America were like, no, 3 is too many, only 2. That's too saucy.
Yeah, you don't want to give any of these hot and spicy teenagers seeing the movie in theater any ideas. Only Mormons soaking in this house.
Oh my goodness.
No, yeah, so we quickly learn that Julia has been fucking around with Frank, and is it already established that Frank is Larry's brother then, or no?
Yeah, because
okay,
you see, like, in her flashback that they're about to get married, and he shows up at the house, and he's like, are you gonna let me in?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I don't know. And it's so weird.
It is.
So weird.
Yeah, it's very over the top.
It's too much. I feel like that's how teenagers think that's supposed to happen. That's definitely what that reads to me. And so they start moving things in, and there's Larry, and Larry's nice, and Larry cares about her, and it's so sad, because you know, like, so early on that she was, like, so hard up for Frank.
Unfaithful and shitty.
Yes. They're just not good to Larry.
And he's such a nice guy the whole movie. He's just being a good husband.
I know, it's so sad. And so they start moving things in, whatever. He's moving up some furniture up to the house, and he cuts his hand really bad. And there's just fake blood everywhere. And
it's so much blood. Like, he should have been passed out with how much blood comes out of his hand.
Yeah, it was too much. And then some of that blood gets onto the floor in the attic where Frank died. And you know right away, that's some bad juju. It's getting sucked into the floorboards, and it's like, that's not normal.
Yeah, the floors look like they're starting to pus up. It's
so
very gross looking.
Yeah, so it was nasty. So the spilling of that blood is almost kind of like a sacrifice, and it brings Frank back to life, but only mostly as just very skeletal, and only pretty much like his torso, like the upper part of his body, and it's nasty.
My god, this is so cool.
It's
like,
so
the formation
gross.
of his brain coming up and, like, connecting to his lower body. It looks so good.
I mean, it looks like that is a person who all of the rest of their body is gone. I've never seen, even now with CGI and some of the terrifying things I've seen, I've never seen something look so real.
It looks so good. It's like there's a few frames of the stop motion animation that look a little choppy, but I don't really care because it just everything else looks so good, and the texture of the brain and everything is so nasty.
It's so real and it's gross.
Like the rawness of the bones, and like it looks like there's just like slime all over them, and it's just like the way it like snaps together when he like forms back up.
It's so good.
It is a sight to behold. It is disgusting.
You're never going to see anything else that looks like that. There's no other movie that I have personally ever seen that looks that real. That was... That's all I'm going to say. It isn't that long before that gross half creature thing that is now Frank is found by Julia. And she's like, what is that? Ew. No. And she's just like gasping. And she's like, oh, no. He's like, it's me, it's Frank. And she's like, the fuck that is. And it's just kind of too much for her for a second. But then she kind of remembers her weird, really sexual flashbacks. And she's like, wow, I've never been pounded that hard before. I guess I could throw away everything I've ever built for myself for that. That's okay. All right, let's do it. And so
I hate Julia.
She's terrible. So she totally, pretty wholeheartedly agrees immediately to start bringing sacrifices for Frank, so he can start draining them for their energy, so he can be a full person again.
Yeah, he explains to her that the cut on Larry's hand brought him back, so he thinks that if more blood is shed on him or in him, he doesn't really say exactly how.
No.
He just basically says if more blood is shed, that he thinks he'll start to become more whole again.
So she also is, I feel like, definitely gung-ho for this because he's feeding her that shit that if she helps him and he gets to be a fully formed person again that doesn't look like something out of like a nightmare hellscape, that they will run away together and be happy because she is just not happy with Larry. And so...
I don't know why.
I don't know.
Larry's such a nice man.
I love you, Larry.
I love you, Larry.
R.I.P.
You're no hunk like Raoul, but you're a hunk on the inside.
That's right. That's right. Mind you, these sacrifices that she's down for, this isn't just like, oh, she's gonna go get somebody and like leave him in the room and lock the door and let Frank eat him or something. Like she's gotta kill this bitch.
Yeah.
She's gotta slice and dice, dude. And it's violent. That's where... No. It's too real. It's way too real. For all the true crime stuff that I watch, I was like, wow, this reminds me of that thing I heard. Oh, no. Meanwhile, Larry has a daughter. Julia is not her mother. That's established pretty early on. So Julia is not her mom. So she doesn't want to live with them. So she's living on her own with her boyfriend. She doesn't get along with Julia. And she's been having weird nightmares about just blood and gore and something terrible happening to her father. And it's just plaguing her, and she can't work without it bothering her. She can't be with her boyfriend. She can't be around her dad. And so she's just so worried. And she's also being followed around by this weird hobo that he doesn't say anything. We see him eat some live crickets.
Yeah, when he visits her. She works in the pet store. Her name is Kirsty, by the way. Fake name.
Kirsty spelt wrong?
Yeah.
Sorry to any Kirstys. It's not right. You need to talk to your mother. Ask her why she did this to you.
No, yeah, and we see a little bit of a standoff with Kirsty and Julia, too. When Julia first sees Frank and talks to him about the whole sacrifice thing, she comes down the stairs and the first person she sees is Kirsty, and they kind of have, like, a stare, and Julia, like, you could tell she's like, yeah, that'd be a good sacrifice.
Yeah, like, immediately Julia's like, I found one. You know, no thought. I guess she really don't like her.
Some good old-fashioned foreshadowing there that they don't have a very good relationship at all.
So Kirsty's having these weird dreams. We feel for her. So she's like, I'm worried about my pa. I'm gonna go see my pa. So she rolls up to the club and she's like, I'm here to see my pa. And what does she see? But none other than Julia being a hoe, bringing a man into her father's house. And she's like, girl, no, that ain't right. And so she gets locked out and she's trying to break in. She's like, oh my god, I can't believe this is happening. Like, what the fuck? Like, it's my dad's house. Like, don't you love my dad? Julia.
Well,
No.
it's just, you know, she's not cheating on her father. He's fucking brutally murdering men and feeding them
Which is even
to a
worse.
disgusting muscle man.
Oh, God. Mitch.
Oh my god. And I believe this was before Kirsty comes in, but there's a scene that really stuck out to me because of how gross it was. It's when Julia goes in and talks to Frank and saying he only needs one or two more people to kill. And, like, he wants to touch her, and Julia's like, no, that's kind of gross. You're still all fleshy and bloody and ew. And he kind of puts out his hand, and then she grabs his hand and, like, rubs his finger against her lip, and I was like, ew.
In every way.
What the fuck?
There's no skin.
There is no way you could find that attractive.
That is raw flesh.
It's really weird. Like, that was... honestly, even less than Pinhead, probably the least realistic thing in this movie. I don't care how much you love somebody. If they have no skin, you aren't going to touch them.
And so I think it's right after that Kirsty gets in the house, if not mistaken. So she gets in the house, and she's gonna bust, or what she thinks she's going to do is bust Julia and, like, catch her in the act, so she can be like, well, wait until Dad hears about this, Jules. And she sees Julia kill a dude and sees this horrible muscly thing in the form of a human kind of feeding on him, and she's like, what the fuck is that thing? And she starts tripping, and then Frank's like, no, don't be afraid, baby, it's me, it's Uncle Frankie. And she's like, what the fuck? She's like, what you say?
And then he says, and I quote, come to daddy, it's okay.
He says daddy a lot in this.
He does call himself daddy a ton.
Where's your daughter? I don't
Clive
understand.
was into the daddy kink before that was a kink.
Clive, did your dad leave you at a young age? Maybe you should see someone. I'm so sorry. Anyway. So she is, very rightfully freaked and is trying to get away. And Julia and Frank are like, oh, no. Julia wants her dead. Frank's like, I could eat that. I could use that, whatever. And so they start kind of, like, fighting, and she's trying to get away. And in this scuffle, she finds the puzzle box. And Frank's like, oh, hell no, you put that thing down. That's not for you. And tries to get it back from her. And she yeets it out the window and then gets away. Thank goodness. She picks it up on her way as she's running off, and then she just passes out. Which I guess I kind of get, like, shock and fear and adrenaline building up. And she was
just manhandled, too, by a couple of people trying to murder her. So
I would also pass out.
Me too. I could use a nap after that.
Me as well. So she, passed out, is now in the hospital. And she wakes up from more terrible, terrible dreams. Probably, I guess, if I remember right, seeing Frank and just being terrified for her father to know that this weird, crazy things is happening inside his home. And she's scared and confused. And in that moment, she is given the box back by her doctor. And he's like, well, maybe this will trigger your memory so you remember why you ended up passed out in the street, because she doesn't really remember anything. And she makes the horrible mistake of messing with that damn box. And I think especially for the time too, like the special effects of like the lightning over it and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
They look really cool. Definitely reminds me of Ghostbusters, like with the plasma and stuff. It looks really neat. And it inevitably opens the door to hell, and the Cenobites show up, and they want her because they've been called upon. She didn't know what she was doing. It's not her fault, and it sucks. She's scared. She saw all these terrible things. And they are saying that she has to go with them because she opened this box, and it's what she wanted, so she gets what she deserves. And she realizes then when the one they call the Chatterer with his big weird teeth.
Yeah, he's like, he kind of looks like almost like a clicker from Resident Evil.
Absolutely.
That's what I thought when I saw him. And then, I don't know, like, they don't say the Cenobites' names, right?
No, you
Because there's a chunky one with glasses. Apparently its name is Butterball.
My favorite thing.
That's fucking hilarious. And then,
they don't say the girl's name. The female Cenobite. They never say what her name is.
oh, the one with, like, the, like, hoop neck thing?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't actually know that was a woman.
Oh, yeah, that's a woman.
They're all just terrifying and genderless to me.
Yeah, so I guess it doesn't matter.
I don't even know. Yeah, but I love when she's freaked out and talking to them, and Pinhead says they are demons to some, angels to others. I just thought that was a really cool line.
It is really, really
and
cool.
his voice is terrifying and
I would be so
disgustingly deep. He has the coolest voice. It's actually terrifying. Like, it's chilling to listen to.
Yeah, just thinking about it gives me... I just had chills just thinking about it. Freaks me out so bad.
So good.
In that moment, she realizes, when they describe to her where they're from, what they do, why they show up, is to bring things that are beyond the carnal pleasures that humanity can bring you.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, oh my god, this is what Frank did.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he has no skin. Oh my gosh. And she tells them, like, wait, you've done this before? And they're like, of course, many times. And she's like, yo, did you do it to Frank Cotton? And they're like, yes. And she's like, well, he ran away. And they're like, fool, lies. Basically, I mean.
Yeah, they're like, no one runs away from us.
And then
we're spooky.
She's like, well, girl, he's gone. And he's doing some really crazy things. And they're like, no, prove it. Prove it, and you don't have to come with us. And she's like, ooh, that ain't a bad deal. He'll fess up. He'll do it. And so she goes back to her dad's home after she makes her bargain with the Cenobites.
Mm-hmm.
And she is hoping that she'll catch her dad, that she can tell him exactly what's going on. She can get him out of the house. That Frank will get his due diligence, and that everything will be okay. And she shows up, and she comes in, she's crying. Mind you, again, absolutely terrified. I think that the girl who plays her, she did a great job.
Oh yeah, is she a notable actress? Like, did she do much after this or no?
I mean, I know she's in the first two, but I don't know really if she did anything else. I know they call her a Scream Queen. I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
But
yeah, because I thought she had the best performance.
I feel like she is definitely
her and Larry did too.
I know.
But Larry's good scenes are coming up. They haven't
true.
happened yet.
Well, she has this horrible, too short, and actually really heartfelt conversation with her father, and he's telling her, oh, everything's going to be okay, and I killed Frank. I saw him, and he's dead now. And we'll tell the police, and we'll make them understand. And she's like, how? How are you going to make them understand? And it just kind of occurs to her that there's just some blood on his face. Something's not quite right. And they go up to the attic, and...
Yeah, she says she wants to see him.
Yeah, she's like, I need to see. And it's kind of in that moment when she realizes, that's not my dad. That thing on the floor that's left over of a person is my father.
When she realizes, actually, when she goes back downstairs to leave, and he says, come to daddy, which he said to her when he was trying to eat her the first time.
I know, and Larry
and she's
never
like, oh shit, yeah.
And she realizes that thing on the ground is her dad.
Yeah, it's really sad.
It's actually really depressing.
Yeah.
I felt so awful for her. Her mom's dead, now her dad's dead, now her uncle's trying to eat her. You know?
It's a hard knock life.
Yeah, truly. And the Cenobites, after, like, some of the other scenes have occurred.
Yeah, she runs back upstairs because Larry and Julia are both trying to kill her. And when he goes to try to stab Kirsty, he accidentally stabs Julia, and then he sucks the life out of her, and he's like, nothing personal, babe.
I know, because she's screaming like, no, not me.
And he's like, bitch, you, I don't care.
For real, he has no remorse.
Mm-hmm.
None. And she's like, why? Mm-hmm. Like, girl, you really thought.
Yeah, so then after that happens, Larry/Frank, but just Frank now, runs upstairs back into the room where the dead body of, rest in peace, Larry, the greatest dad, the dad of the year, his dead body lies. And then the Cenobites start flashing in, and Larry's like, oh shit. Or Frank is like, oh shit. I'm getting confused just because.
And he's kind of like, in that moment, mind you, he's just confessed to Kirsty. Like, I mean, obviously she already knows, but it's different.
Yeah, that he's wearing the skin of her dead father.
And that he's killed all these people, and the Cenobites are like...
Also, side note, I know we were talking about this yesterday after we watched the movie. Another thing that made no sense to me, just because I want to say before I forget, the fact that Julia was, like, happy and attracted with Frank when he looked like Larry, when I feel like the whole point of her trying to get back Frank was because she was, like, super sexually attracted to him.
I know, like, what's the point? Why
Exactly.
wouldn't you just want to be with your husband then?
Exactly, because it didn't seem like she cared about him, she just seemed to care about their sex life, so that didn't make any sense.
And you know what Larry would have put out for her? Larry would have done anything for her bitch ass.
Larry would put his dick out for anybody if they really needed it. I'm sorry if my parents ever listen to this.
I'm sorry, Lorraine.
So yes, the Cenobites appear, and Frank is like, ah, shit.
And it's in this moment again where he ends up with all these hooks in him, and they tear him apart, and he blows up again.
Yeah, he blows up again, and they cut away at the perfect time again.
Yeah, it's against the law. They can't show the blowy uppy.
It would look so good.
I know. And, you know, after... She has held up her end of the bargain, you know, and, of course, these are... What am I trying to say? Of course, these are not honorable creatures.
Yeah, these
They
are not
demons.
humans with a moral.
No moral compass there. They don't want to hold up their end. And they're deciding here, like, no, we're still going to take you. It'll be fun. And she is like, fuck no. My mom's dead, my dad's dead, my creepy uncle's dead, my weird stepmom's dead, they tried to eat me.
Yeah,
She's
like, I'm running out of shit. Don't take my life away from me, too.
For real. So she grabs the puzzle box out of the hands of the now dead Julia and uses it, like, pulling it apart, putting back together, set to send the Cenobites back to their weird hell dimension.
Yeah, this is so this is a really weird kind of interesting effect. She, like, messes with the puzzle again, and she, like, aims it at the Cenobites, and then they kind of, like, electrocute away. I don't really know how else to explain it. It's like electricity flashes towards them, and then it just kind of
eats them.
Yeah, it kind of like I don't know how else to explain it, but like it kind of like squishes around, and then they just kind of disappear. But like it's also weird because it's almost like it's supposed to be. It's different for each of them the way it happens. Like they all have like different patterns. And I don't know if that's supposed to represent something or mean something later on, because like I said, this movie seems to have a lot of untouched lore that I'm assuming happens in the sequels. But I personally like the effect. From what I know, a lot of people don't like the effect and they think it looks cheesy and silly and dumb, but this movie is cheesy and silly and dumb, so it doesn't bug me none. I enjoyed it.
I like how it looks. I think it's definitely of its time, but I like it.
Yeah.
I think it looks neat.
And while all this is happening, the house is just falling apart.
Yeah, absolutely just crumbling away.
And Kirsty's boyfriend is coming to check on her, and he's just like, what the fuck is going on? As he just sees the house crumble, and he runs in to try to help her while she's zapping all these dudes away. I know, and
he sees these things like that she's pointing it at.
Exactly.
And he's just kind of like, what the?
Yeah, like he doesn't really help. He just kind of stares and is just like, what? Yeah, I gotta go. He's like, I shouldn't have came.
He's like, should we leave? And so she gets the last of them, and they kind of shamble their way out of the house, and it kind of cuts to them at like a bunch of fires, like I guess it would be normal in a place like maybe like Chicago, where a lot of homeless people hang out, where they have like the pyres that they put in the big trash cans or something, where they all hang out to keep warm. And she's like, I'm done with this, and she tosses the box into one of the fires. And you think like, okay, whatever, that's the end of the story. And then shows up the weird hobo ate the crickets, and he just really slowly approaches, and she's like, is this happening? And he reaches into the pyre and he pulls it out, and he is just all ablaze. He starts screaming, and then it turns into like a very not human scream. And he turns into something that straight up, it looks exactly like. I couldn't figure it out when we were watching it yesterday, and I could not for the life of me, like, thinking what it looked like. But if you've ever seen something that we will have to watch, the Tales from the Dark Side movie, shout out to the homies, have you seen that? When there's the gargoyle story, that's exactly what he looked like.
Yeah, it was like a weird skeleton bat thing.
Yeah, he's huge.
It was fucking cool looking.
He was really neat looking, and he flies off with the box, and Kirsty and her boyfriend are like, I didn't think this day could get weirder, but it did. But it did. And he flies away with it, and then it just kind of cuts to the same scene that we opened with, in the same bizarre shopping market, with the same person selling the box to some other poor soul. And
then that's it.
Yeah. That's all she wrote.
What a fucking movie. It was something, alright.
Ladies and gents, and whatever else you may identify as, I did not expect Craig to like it this much.
I loved it.
I knew he was going to think it was interesting. I did not think he was going to be like, wow, this movie slaps hard.
I don't know, this is... Like, when I think of the kind of horror movie that I know I'll enjoy, this is the kind of stuff that I think I'll like. Like, I could do without the overtly and, like, over-sexual stuff, because that doesn't do it for me, but, like, the overly over-the-top violence and special effects and stuff and the practical effects is what I'm here for. This movie had a lot of that. It was really good. And maybe I'm alone in this, but I don't really care about the story in my horror movie for the most part. I feel like it depends on the horror movie, but a lot of times I feel like that's not actually the focus.
No, I would agree. It's probably 9 times out of 10 it's not.
Yeah.
It's all there for the shock value.
Mm-hmm. But I really did like it a lot. I am looking forward to watching the rest of the series, and this is one that I would go back and watch again right away, because I actually had a lot of fun with it.
It's a really weird movie.
Mm-hmm. Nothing else like it. There really isn't.
You'll never see another movie that hits like this does. And I do really feel like it's so hard to believe this is the first movie he made.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really is, I mean, considering it has so much gore and sex cut out of it, it is actually cut together really well.
Mm-hmm.
The sets are great. They're all very real people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, these are all people that I would see on the street or somebody I would work with, and I could believe that this really could happen to somebody. And I think that's where, like, so the story may be weird, but these people are very realistic.
And it's kind of cool. There's not many settings.
No,
I'd say
I like that.
of the hour and a half, at least probably 65 of the minutes are just in the one house, which is kind of cool.
Very interesting.
I always think it's interesting when TV or film can do that. They can have almost just one setting and make the whole thing feel like it's not taking place in one place. Like, it's almost like each room of the house felt like it had like a feeling behind it.
Absolutely.
Because like so much went into each scene and each character and where they were located.
And I feel like the set for this house is so good because they make it look lived in. They make it look, it's a nasty old house.
Yes, it's disgusting.
Falling apart. It's super gross.
Yeah, when they first get in there, there's maggots everywhere. It's a bad time.
Gross. 0 out of 10. I don't like bugs. 0 out of 10.
Most people don't like bugs.
I don't know. Some people are entomologists, Craig.
Yeah. Probably not because they like it. Probably because they make a lot of money.
I doubt you make a lot. Any entomologists out there,
hit us up.
Let me
Tell
know
us
how
your
much,
salary.
Yeah, your yearly
Let
salary.
me know if
please.
I need to change my career path.
No. You're not bringing bugs into our house.
Oh my god. Fine. All right, so I need to pull out my cell phone real quick because we had an audience inquiry. So thank you to Elaine, a friend of ours, for writing in. She watched this movie and she gave us her own little review to read off. If you guys want to give us your reviews or snippets or thoughts, opinions on anything in the future, you can go ahead and email us at bloodmonstersandfears@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at BMandFpodcast on Twitter. So here's what Elaine had to say. I know I've seen this movie before when I was little, maybe around age 6, ? So that was almost 18 years ago, wow. I must have repressed this entire film because the only thing I could remember from this movie was Pinhead. To this day, even though most of the scary things don't faze me anymore, he's the only horror icon that still scares me. I didn't expect to see so little of him in this movie, maybe that's why I completely forgot about what I saw. I don't remember the movie being like this, though, at all. I don't remember all the freaky Frank stuff or the Cenobites, so rewatching this almost felt like the first time. If I'm being honest, the movie did actually creep me out a lot. The scene where Frank is being resurrected has some really impressive effects because I felt genuinely disgusted watching it. Frank is a complete fucking creep for advances on his niece and preying on this low-key naive woman, imploring that she kills people to fuel him. Do you have a comment?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good. You just made a face like you had something to say, because I'm sure you agree with Elaine on a lot of this. Using the word daddy as often as he did. This man definitely belongs in hell. It seems like his sexual deviancy was important enough to be included in the description of the movie, and yes, I understand this was worth mentioning because the Xenobites offer a whole other world of carnal pleasures, but his kinks were not even the bad part about him. Glad Julia's stupid ass got killed too because she belongs in hell with him. I agree with Elaine. The Xenobites, dear fucking god, they are scary as fuck. I think if I had ended up in the situation Kirsty was in, I would have shit my pants. Explorers, like, no, y'all look straight up like sleep paralysis demons. The thought that there may be a possibility of other demons and things like that may be lurking around is unsettling. The creative design of these monsters is ahead of its time, and I think they are some of the more scary monsters I've seen in movies. Though, at the end, where they became zaps of lights as they perished, that was laughable. Which, like I said before, a lot of people seem to not like that, but I enjoyed the way they zapped away. I thought it was kind of neat. The overall concept of the film was definitely interesting, and although I did feel disturbed in many parts of the film, I am enticed enough to watch some of the sequels. I had to break watching this movie into several parts because I felt uncomfortable by some of the scenes, which was refreshing. Since this movie was released in the late 80s, I expected some cheesy effects and did see those, and I'm curious as to whether effects like that are seen in the sequels. I do enjoy some campiness in horror films, and it almost felt odd that a movie with cheesiness was able to creep me out. Part of me is kind of curious as to what some of the sights to see Pinhead mentioned are, but I don't have the same kind of curiosity that Frank had. Maybe staying tethered to this reality is for the best sometimes.
Shout out to you, my girl Elaine. Yeah, he says daddy way too much. He is a fucking freak. And not in like that, oh, she a freak. But like, oh no.
Yeah, it's weird.
So, I take back, I redact my previous statement. I'm gonna kink shame here on this podcast. If your name is Frank Cotton, I will kink shame you.
That's fair. But I agree, especially her talking about the character design, because I absolutely love the way all of them look. They're so unique. And Pinhead really is actually terrifying.
It scares the shit out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put needles near my face. Don't come at me with that. Almost everything you said, Elaine, other than I do think the cute little lights are really fun. I like it.
What, the zaps?
I like the little zippity zappity zoos. I like them a lot. I think they're cute. I think
I don't think
they're
supposed to be cute.
I think it makes them less frightening. I think that's what its place is to see them and not like...
In a vulnerable form? Or what?
Yes. I think it's definitely to make them less frightening to you, to ease back on the... They're almost all powerful in a way. They can come in and out with being summoned, but if you don't know you're doing it, you're totally screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And that scares the shit out of me. Everything about it scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, I wasn't scared, but like I actually think that the monsters in this are legitimately scary looking. I think that Frank is terrifying to look at. I think that the music and the score of this movie is very good at setting the tone as well. And it's a scary movie. Like, I don't know, it didn't stick with me, but I could see why like people would be terrified of Pinhead. They would be terrified of watching these kind of films because it looks really good, it sounds really good, and it's disturbing. Like she said, Elaine said she had to watch it in multiple parts. I can understand that. Like when we started watching yesterday, I was eating, and one of the first things you see is someone blow up, and I was almost like, like, maybe I should pause and finish my food first. I ended up not doing it. I toughed it out, but I can see this being a hard watch for some people, and I think that's impressive considering that this isn't like a modern movie.
Considering it's 33 years old and it was made on actual film reels,
Mhm.
and the only computerized effects you see are the zaps that people don't like.
Mhm.
Knowing that those are people in costumes and people with a puppet and a person making some of those horrifying noises,
Mhm.
that's what scares me about it.
So you got some fun facts for me, Anna?
Of course, anytime. So this is actually a fun fact that Craig gave me.
Oh yes, I did see this.
Yes, is that at the film's premiere and the wrap party I read as well.
Mhm.
Poor Doug Bradley, the guy who actually plays Pinhead, nobody noticed him. Nobody talked to him because they didn't know who he was. He'd been on set with these people all the time. He'd filmed all of this movie with them. Nobody recognized him because nobody had seen him without his makeup on. It took,
So funny.
again, another fun fact, 6 hours to put that on him.
It's insane.
Can you
Every
I
time.
can't imagine.
Must have sucked.
For real. I did mention previously that this is Clive Barker's directorial debut. He did make this movie himself because he was really unhappy with previous adaptations of his stories. He was just, I get it. I would do the same thing, I think, if I was in his shoes. And believe it or not, the budget for this movie was only $1 million. I can't imagine. They stretched it out. Given, I don't know if that's $1,019,87 or $1,020,020.
Either way.
But that's a lot of money. Or, excuse me, it's not a lot of money to do as much as they did with it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, didn't you say that it made like $14 million too?
I know. So, I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but on a budget of $1 million,
Yeah.
they did really well for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
All of the all of the roaches and the maggots in this movie are real.
Which is terrifying. I would not be able to, you'd have to pay me that whole $1 million budget to be able to act around maggots. I could not do it. Those are the grossest things in the world.
It's so nasty. So nasty. Also, almost all of the actors' lines had to be redubbed when this was going through distribution because it was all shot in England because Clive Barker is English. And I do believe Doug Bradley, who plays Pinhead, and several other people, like the lady who plays Julia, they are English. And so they had to redub all of it because it was shot in England and it was supposed to be set in the United States. And I don't know why they wouldn't just let them fake the whole, like...
So wait.
Yeah.
So everyone's voices are redubbed over? That's none of their original voices?
Some of them are and some of them aren't. But
well, Julie's the only one with the accent, right?
Yeah, she's the only one I think they kept. And I guess...
So someone else was actually doing their voice?
As far as what I read 3 times, yes.
That is so weird.
Isn't it strange?
I would have never thought.
I don't think Frank, because that's 2 different guys playing Frank, by the way.
Oh, the, like, weird zombie form.
So there's regular, quote-unquote, sexy Frank with the big eyebrows and the really heavy 5 o'clock shadow.
He ain't no Raoul.
No one's a Raoul. And then there's him with no skin or flesh. And that's a totally different guy.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is so weird, though. I never would have guessed.
Right? I mean, a lot of it's
so
dubbed over, right?
Weird.
They might, I mean, I don't know if they got the same people to come in and fake an American accent or what happened, but
That's so bizarre.
Hey, stranger things have happened in the making of film.
That is true.
Another thing is when we were talking about like the character design and everything of the Cenobites, they are, per Clive Barker himself, heavily modeled after the things he saw in S&M clubs, cue S&M by Rihanna, punk rock wearing people, and the Catholic Church. See here in case you have any questions about these inquiries. Please see leather, the spikes and chains you see, the weird the weird rivets in their clothes. That's definitely the punk and the S&M. And I would say those high-cut collars and the big skirts are very much like the robes that priests wear. I remember the first time I saw it, and that's immediately what I thought of, was that he was like a creepy, weird priest. I was like, oh no. And then originally, the Chatterer, the one with the teeth, and Butterball, the big fatty.
I love Butterball. Give him a big slimy hug.
Ew.
He looks so greasy.
He's all oiled up.
Mm.
You oily bitch. They both originally had speaking roles, but the prosthetics were too difficult to speak in and too hard to be heard through that they had to cut it.
They just said fuck
which
it.
Sucked.
I know, I wonder what their voices would have sounded like.
Jumbled nuts, I don't know.
Probably.
Creepy.
Mm-hmm.
They were supposed to be super, like, everything they said was supposed to be really weirdly sexual.
Yeah, I can believe
surprise.
it. Yeah, I mean, what's his name? Pinhead, his nipples are, like, bloody up and down, too. He's just got some chafing problems.
I guess he didn't put on any baby powder underneath the leather. Oops. He wasn't wearing his morph suit under there. Oh, no.
God. So that is, for the most part, all that we have, I believe.
Yeah.
I really like this movie. Like I said before, I know I sound like a broken record probably, but this is a solid 5 out of 5 for me. This is exactly what I want when we watch these movies.
It's a weird movie.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never gonna say.
Like I know it's not a 5 for you, but
No.
this is what I like. Like I know that it's not objectively a 5, but I prefer movies to be fun over good, if that makes sense.
It does.
And this is a fun movie, so.
I would personally give it probably a 4 because I do like the story as much as I think that a lot of it doesn't make sense. They absolutely have left me wanting more. Given I've never seen the second one, I have seen the third and the fourth. They used to play them on Chiller all the time.
That's
Shout
fun.
out to my favorite Dead TV channel. But I think it's a great movie. I love it for what it is. I think when you love movies and you love them for what they are when they're made and you have things in their context, and you know, if that's what you look for in a film, and you love gore or you love horror movies or you love great effects and you just like movies and you can understand them and enjoy them in their context, this is a movie everybody should see. Definitely a 4 out of 5.
Solid. So eventually we're gonna have to do the other Hellraisers, but it's gonna be a while. But next week for week 3, just so everyone knows, we are going to be doing the 1996 classic Scream. So that's gonna be fun. Of course, I haven't seen that either because we're mostly doing everything I haven't seen.
It is
At least to start off.
one of my favorite movies.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to watch that one. That's going to be a fun time. So if you guys want to write in your reviews or thoughts about that as we go forward, you can go ahead. Like I said before, you could email us at bloodmonstersandfears@gmail.com, or you could tweet us at BMandF Podcast on Twitter. And I hope you guys all have a good week, and we will see you next Wednesday.
Bye.